Next, I'd like to invite to the podium Julien Fernandez. Julien is the head of the Office of Strategic Overview for the Ministry of Environment, Energy, and the Sea in France, and he's going to be talking to us about introducing the Paris Agreement and Global Climate Action Agenda. Julien, for 7 years, worked for the French Prime Minister, Information and Media Services before joining the ministry where he now works. I also notice he has a background in law. So we have a trend that we're establishing right at the beginning of our conference. So please, Julien.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I wanted to thank Piank for the organization of the meeting today and for the invitation. I'm representing here Ministry of Environment, Energy and the Sea of France and the General Directorate for Transport, Infrastructure and the Sea. So today, as an introduction, Piank asked me to present or introduce the Paris Agreement and the Global Climate Action Agenda. I think for most of you it will be a kind of reminder, but maybe it is useful to remind you the global context of the initiative of today. I will, this is the remote control. It is a test.
The green one.
I push the green. Yeah, it works. Thank you. I will develop 2 points. Just remind you the key points of the Paris Agreement and the concept of the action agenda. So just to remind you that Paris Agreement, as you know, I think, is the first universal agreement on climate. It was unanimously adopted on December 12, 2015, and entry into force 1 year later. At the time being, it has been ratified by more than 130 countries, which is quite huge. And the Paris Agreement provides for the first time clear and ambitious aim, which is limiting the global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius and targeting 1.5. The second aim of the agreement is to reach carbon neutrality in the second half of the century. Third one is to the Paris Agreement include and demand national climate plans and a dynamic process of improvement and assessment of these national plans. As you know, Paris Agreement included financial flows, especially for developing countries, for their support. Here you are, the 4 pillars, let's say, of the Paris Agreement. The agreement itself, the nationally determined contributions, NDCs, financing, and the action agenda. Regarding the action agenda, the concept as itself is unprecedented approach, not in general, but in the COP history. It was supported very strongly by France during COP21 and still. It is based on the mobilization of the non-state actors, economic, institutional stakeholders, including companies, non-governmental organizations, and local governments. It is to say that climate change requires commitment by civil societies and not only governments, governmental or administrative actions. In that sense, agenda of solution is or act as a catalyst for transport stakeholders initiative. And they are recognized as fundamental players in the climate change process. As it has been noticed just in the previous presentation, transport play a key role in the changing climate. It represents 23% of global green gas emissions, but transport sector is also vulnerable to climate change and needs sometimes in some points huge adaptations. But also transport sector offers potential levers, multiple levers for climate change. Transport demand, modal shift, energy efficiency, energy mix. In this context, transport initiatives have a strong involvement for climate change. Just to remember that transport initiative represents the quarter of the overall initiative at COP21, representing all modes and infrastructure, also services. For example, freight, cycling, rail, road aviation, maritime, e-mobility, etc. The Paris Process for Mobility and Climate, PPMC, which was created by SLOCAT and MCB, play a key role as a coordinator and facilitator for the animation, the follow-up, and structuration of the transport initiatives. Navigating a changing climate, the purpose of this initiative is to reduce greenhouse gas emission on waterborne transport infrastructure at global level. NACC and have a strong commitment in the action agenda process, and also takes adaptation issues into consideration, which is a very important issue for waterborne or maritime infrastructure. It creates and develops effective mobilization of the non-state actors, both with practical and technical approach of the issues. This kind of initiative is fully in line with the initial idea of the initiative raised at COP21. Regarding transport decarbonation, France encouraged initiatives to reduce transport emission and share roadmaps, as for example, roadmap proposed by PPMC. And also, France developed structured national initiatives aimed at reducing emissions, like the low carbon national strategy and the strategy for clean mobility development, which are integrated in the French energy transition law adopted in 2015. Also, I wanted to point out that France tries to develop, by now, methodologies for assessment, which are in process. One and the last thing what I wanted to point out is the follow-up process of initiatives for the COP23 and next. It is important to have a public reporting on the website, for example, on what initiatives are achieving. So I think in this, regarding this issue, this reporting, navigating and PIANC shows many achievements in the website and also in the global NASCA website and PPMC website. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.